We finished 7 seasons of our spy show, and we didn't have much to do last night, so we kept Kate and Kai like up all, we kept them hostage, like talking to them for hours, and finally Kai was like, "God, you guys, the show is over, I guess." Huh? We have nothing. Usually we rush home. We don't want to talk to anybody, but no, we kept them. We had them, and then once they got away from us, then they had to come back to the restaurant that we were like standing in front of getting food from, and they literally were like trying not to talk to us, and I said to them, this is what happens. So I got a bunch of DMs of people, oh, you should watch this show, you should watch that show, and I appreciate that, because it's good to get some recommends. I gave those DMs are much better than some of the weirder DMs I get. Like somebody DM'd me, yesterday or the day before, and was like, when you story something, you really should make sure that you tag the person so I know who it is. Like it's like somebody like lecturing you about how you should do your stuff, because it's not convenient to them. And that kind of stuff. No, I prefer the DMs of like what show I should watch, because I need help. I'm busy. I need like some recommends. So if you have some ideas, so I need something. I did no horror, but something intelligent that is, at least somewhat about, the conspiracy of the elite government, or the reality, or the alien agenda, or something like that. Don't waste my time. You know what I mean? And so one time I was giving Hadi Jeevan some, I told Hadi Jeevan, you really should see this movie. This was a couple years ago. You should see this movie. It's about the indie music situation, and kind of what's happening in the indie music industry. And I think it's good. Like, I think it'd be worth your, and I'm very careful about what I tell Hadi Jeevan to watch, because when Dave was trying to get him to watch Outlander. And I said to him, he's like, I watched 5 minutes and they had sex so many times. I just don't know if I can do this. And I was like, it's okay. I really don't think that's your show. Dave wants you to share that with you, but I don't think it's your show. So I let him off the hook. I was like, you don't need to watch Outlander. I don't think that's the right show for you. But this movie, I was like, you should really watch this movie. And it had like Mark Ruffalo in it and whatever, that Keira whatever Knightley, and it was by that director who did the musical film called Once. I can't remember what this one's called, but it's kind of, that guy makes interesting films, and so I can't remember what it was called, but it had some resonance to a film that was out at the similar time that was called, is it Pitch Perfect? That film about like choir, like not choir, but like a cappella like groups and their like competitive drama with each other. And so I guess they downloaded the wrong movie for him. So he had Pitch Perfect, and he's on the airplane and he's watching it. He's like, the first 15 minutes, he's cursing me out. He's like, oh, fuck, Guru Jagat, I can't believe she told me to watch this movie. And he's like, he tried to give 5 minutes. He's like, all right, maybe this is going to get better. Then he's like 10 minutes in, and it's like these, drama, show choir, like a cappella, like Broadway drama. And he was just cursing me out. And then he realized it was the wrong movie. So, these are hazards that we recommend. So if you're recommending me a show, make sure you got you need to have some cred on this. But I'd like to talk a little bit this morning about something I think is very important in 2020 and very important to be a leader, which I'm going to call it, for our purposes, the spiritual no. Because our whole kind of the Piscean era of how society was built, and how kind of the construct and all of our patterning is that we lie to ourselves and we lie to each other. And so there's a lot of kind of there's a term for it called spiritual chauvinism, which is that we have an idea, and both for ourselves or others, that this is what it would look like if I was a spiritual person. So basically, we're being a chauvinist to ourselves, or to others, usually to others, but also to ourselves. What it would look like if I was living a spiritual life, or I was being a good person or kind person or compassionate person. And then there's a whole industry built on that, which is all the self-help books and all the, it's just about love and all this kind of stuff. But nobody knows what love means, and it's completely misused. And we're lucky if we have a glimmer of an experience of that ecstatic, what actual love is. So it's totally overused. And in the new age, I remember when I used to not watch TV, and instead of watching TV growing up, I would just go to these like new age events because they're really good. They're very good entertainment. And so, and here in New York, when I was, my formative years, I would, who wants to watch TV? That was before the streaming services. So who wants to watch TV when you can go to some like freak show, new age, like some Swami or something's in town, and you can go over there and see how weird everybody acts. I always thought like, this is hilarious. This is funny. This is good entertainment. And so there's a lot, and Sunroller, I watched you give Shubhapreet a 5-minute hug yesterday or the day before. I was talking about it last night. That was my most entertaining moment of the past couple of weeks. I only saw the back of Shubhapreet, and Shubhapreet was like, and Sunroller's like, You can't you were just like into it. Shubhapreet's like, and Kai said he saw her from the front, like the face, and he said, Shubhapreet, your face the whole time was like. We're touchy people around here. Yeah. We're loving people around here. That's my favorite. I was rewinding to that moment, and then I saw you like hold it and like rub the back, and I was like, did her face look like that the whole time, Kai? He was like, yep, the whole time. Joanna was classically pissed at me because at the Aquarian Women's Leadership Society gathering this summer, I started the whole thing was, well, on the WhatsApp thread, Joanna says, lots of people are hugging. I was like, how's everything going over there? Joanna, lots of people are hugging, period. That's a quote, and she was so mad at me afterwards. But so the New Age. This is funny. It's hilarious. But there's something that has been, and this is, I believe 1,000%. There's a lot of reasons, but 1,000% one of the reasons that Yogi Bhajan gave me a name that's classically given to men, first of all, and that has a word in it that everybody freaks out about because of their spiritual chauvinism. And a lot of people think I gave it to myself. That's some wacky shit right there. Like when, But there was this guy who this spiritual name Satnam. And remember this, Julian? And he decided he was going to bequeath himself Guru Satnam. There's some people like that who get like a different name, and they decide they're gonna put Guru on it because like it matters, or like it's easy. It's very hard to because we're basically taking that spiritual chauvinism of the Piscean era, which is you're a teacher, you're there's a hierarchy, you know better than me, initiate me. People tried to pay Yogi Bhajan millions of dollars constantly because he lived in Hollywood. Every rich and famous person tried to pay him for 50 years to initiate them and do all this kind of shit with them. And he said no from A to Z. And why? Well, first of all, I don't want to deal with that person's karma. Second of all, that's not the game we're playing. This is the age of Aquarius. It's a self-initiation age. And if you don't want to initiate yourself, which most people don't, why? Because, it takes something to decide that you're going to have enough spiritual maturity and responsibility to do something with yourself. And so he refused from A to Z. It would have been easy for him. He could he could look at you, and there's a million stories of people tell me these stories all over the world. I met Yogi Bhajan one time when I was pregnant, or when I was a kid, or when I was, and that is the most important moment of their life. So he could have easily put his hand on their head and pulled some kind of spiritual trip on them, but that's not the game we're playing in the age of Aquarius. And so I feel very strongly that I was given this name to completely disrupt everyone's ideas about what that looks like in every single way. Because we're, especially as Westerners, but this runs rampant through collective consciousness, which is we have a spiritual chauvinism about what it looks like to be a good person, a spiritual person, a kind person, a compassionate person. And a lot of what that is, it's soft eyes. It's, being compassion looks a certain way. Spirituality looks a certain way. That's why people get all confused. That's why we don't, that's why we made the pink in Robotic Disaster. It's like, no. We don't care about, we like white. I have to wear white. It's my uniform. But and it does something to the aura, but we do not care about what you're wearing. We don't care about what you're wearing. We don't care about what you're doing. Like there's this one girl who, she kind of dropped off the wagon. We hadn't seen her in a while. She was drinking and sexing and drugging, who knows? And we asked her. She was talking about bringing somebody home, and they were bothered by the mantras, and we were like, oh, so you're still playing the mantras? She's like, of course. I liked that. I thought that was good. But this is post-morality, post-religious, post-moral, and part of our job as leaders in this time is to deconstruct this inside us. That's what I'm writing my book about. The inner patriarchy is what is going to keep us in war and terror and in all these kinds of things that are the structures of those, the external structures of that that kind of programming. Those are the internal kind of ways that we're participating in that. This is a huge way, and it's rampant in the spiritual and new age and wellness scene, that it looks a certain way for you to be a deep spiritual practitioner or a kind person or even compassionate. So one of my favorite mantras of 2020 is no. Or, even better than that, fuck no. Because, and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who is a Buddhist teacher, who his students said they didn't even know he was teaching Buddhism for 12 years when he came to the West. They didn't know they were practicing Buddhism. He just didn't mention it. It wasn't because he was really trying to bring a new frequency and a more Aquarian frequency into those teachings. So there was a night where there's a very famous story where he felt that the Sangit or the members of the community were indulging in their own kind of spiritual materialism and spiritual chauvinism too much. And so he had what's called a treasure revealment or a revelation, and he called it the big no. And he slammed his fist down. This was just, spontaneous. They were all kind of hanging out, and he slammed his fist down on a glass table and broke it. And everybody was like, and he said, no. And then he was a calligraphy artist, and he did this whole piece, a spontaneous piece of art that is now referred to as the big no. And it was a no to the indulgence and the self-deception of the spiritual practitioners in the community, that they were using their practice to indulge in these what we would in our lineage call Piscean kind of ideas about spiritual practice. And so in 2020, we're here at Rama Institute for Applied Yogic Science and Technology and enrolling our first class of Rama University by fall of 2021. So what we're up to here is we're interested in creating the modern spiritual leader that looks whatever way it looks, because it looks very different for every person. And what people will do, the higher you get, the more you expose yourself, the more you put yourself out there. If you don't fit into their little, whatever their spiritual chauvinism box is, then they're going to have a problem with you. Or if you, and moreover, there's, this is what I want you to work with yourself, is that there's some idea that what it looks like to be a nice person, or what it looks like to be a compassionate person, that these are very toxic ideas, because true compassion often comes with no. That is a very compassionate mantra. And, kindness often comes with some honesty that you're either not willing to indulge in your own, let's just keep it with ourselves, you're not willing to indulge in your own self-deceptions, which means you have to say no to yourself. It's a good thing to say to yourself. No. So the big no, but then he did another kind of revelation, and he called it the no. The little no. It was the big no and the little no. And the little no is, you got to direct your mind and your body in the right way. That's what practice is about. So if you're thinking, if you're getting in the wrong neighborhood of your mind, or if you're indulging in certain ideas about what it should look like to practice, or what it should look like to be. I was talking about this with some mothers. Motherhood is one of the most patriarchal institutions on this planet, as it stands right now. And that's, just spend a moment with that. So it's been built as there's a major kind of patriarchy in the institution of motherhood. I'm not talking about the practice of motherhood, but the institution of motherhood. And this has nothing to do with gender. So I want you to use your practice this morning to really kind of cut through any places you're being indulgent with yourself, because self-pity is a pit that you fall into every time you decide you're going to feel sorry for yourself. And this stuff is very subtle when you get to a certain point. Or, you have some problem with, so this lady took at least a couple minutes out of her day to make a notation to me that I need to run my Instagram account differently, when she could be doing the addiction meditation. So she stops being nosy with other people's business and gets, works on herself. That would be, that's going to actually serve her. But the thing that people are always surprised. Somebody asked me, we were in New Orleans, and some guy was like, so what is your birthday? I guess he's an astrologer and whatever. And I was like, no. And he was so shocked. He was pissed. He left. Because he thought I owed him telling him what my astrology is. No. But, you have to, this practice is a powerful practice for you to start to kind of get, because the more yourself you become, the more magnetic you are. And no is a powerful mantra to start to figure out how you're going to, kind of play the game of your humanity. And the reason why you have to get therapeutic about it, that's the big no. The reason you have to get therapeutic about it is that most of us are just people pleasing and neurotically, concerned whether people like us. And it's a heavy, heavy, heavy programming. So to be kind while saying no, we have no archetype for that. Or while, saying something true, we have nothing, there's nothing in our, the politicians aren't doing it, the economists aren't doing it, what leaders are actually, with the heart open, not taking the bullshit? Well, very few. There are some. But first and foremost, you have to do it with yourself. And then you start to see how you're being a chauvinist with other people when they're not fitting into your little box of what they should or should not be. You're doing that with your partners. Your romantic partners are fucked with this stuff. Because if they're not fitting in the little box of what they should and should not be to you, then, they're in trouble. This is what we work with the women, because women are really terrible about this. But everyone does it. All right, so we're going to work with a little spiritual no today. I want you to, this is a good mantra to work with as we go into these new frequencies. But it's heart open, chakras balanced. You know, there's no closure around it. It's very open, actually. Even the sound is a very open sound. No. Okay, let's do a little cat-cow. Thanks so much for listening to another lecture on reality riffing. These are conversations and topics that I think are very important to discuss. If you enjoyed, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and share with your friends and your family. If you also want to continue to listen, bigger lectures and classes and other experiences are available on gurujagat.com.